efficient here. See if I can share screens with everybody. Get the SRS copy up here. And Stephen, you want me to use the the SDD copy that you had last that you sent me the other day?
That would be fine. The version 3, which is now the version 4. You're talking about the link or the PDF?
Okay. And is that it?
We're not seeing your screen right now.
No. Hang on. Okay, there you are.
Yep, that's
is
it.
this it? Version 4 or version 3 with comments?
This is version 3, but with our change
Great.
control, it got renamed to version 4.
All right. So we'll hit on that first about version control. So we had a number of conversations with the pilot group, and one of the comments that they brought up was a number of teams, both not just this class, but other teams, are having all sorts of fun getting used to change control and document management. And I talked to them about the discussion you and I had to make sure you don't waste time and go and try to reformat this in Word. Just make sure you submit it in Google Docs and just record it that that's the format that you're doing as part of the limitations, and that I have to accept the formatting based on Google Docs. He said that a number of other teams are having problems doing version control in Google Docs, in Office 365, as well as just having a change management director who's doing it just in their own class and keeping one master document. So everyone's kind of experiencing this. It's one of those things you always have to kind of overcome. And kind of curious, how are you guys working that out for change control?
So I guess I can speak on that. What we do is we are probably a little, well, we're Nazis in our permission control system. We allow teams to work for 3 or 4 days on their document, fulfilling their specific sections, and then we kick everybody out into view only mode. And we let the QA team be the only ones who can go in and do anything on the document for the 2-day QA cycle. At that point, when we submit it to you, we take a PDF snapshot and a Word doc, because that keeps track of the comments, the QA feedback, and everything that was at that point in time. And then we open it back up and allow people to continue working on for the next version.
Okay. So, looking here at the document, again, looks a lot nicer, a lot cleaner. Had seen the one comment about appendix. Let's see, do you guys actually, do any of your page numbers actually jump, or they do jump?
They should jump. When you click on the appendix.
They all do.
I think.
I gotta just get used to this.
If you click on the title, there's also that too, yeah.
There it goes. Okay, so that's how it jumps. Okay. So here's what you had talked about in the appendix about moving all the diagrams to the back, or the end. Okay. Yeah, this is a lot easier to follow. And what were you guys using to create a lot of the diagrams? What program?
Matt, you want to speak on your team, because we had different teams doing different things. So I know that a lot of the architecture came from one team, and then the user interface was from a different. So maybe if the team leads want to speak to their different pieces, Matt and Sarah.
Yes. So as far as my team goes, Mahanrai made. Hold on a second. All right, I'm right next to my wife right now. So yes, Mahanrai went through and he remade, I want to say, all of the diagrams or most of the diagrams up to I want to say 28. Um, most all of those is in. Well, Google has their own thing. They call it like draw.io.
Yeah, what did you guys use?
It's the same thing that he used.
Oh,
Pretty sure he used it in this.
so it sounds like you, I, and Andrew all use draw.io.
Yeah, I mean, there were some discrepancies before because my team was using, I can't remember what that thing is called. We had to get it through the school. It was a bit higher quality stuff, but yeah,
Microsoft's version, whatever it was.
yeah.
Visio?
Whatever Microsoft's version is.
Visio, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I was curious if you guys were using Visio for this or not.
Does that answer your question?
Okay. Got it. All right. So let's see. We'll jump all the way back. All right. So yeah, I like the fact that you had that down. Everything through the rest of the document flowed nice. I was curious in the limitations. Okay, what's the highlighting or the bolded mean?
The highlighting just shows that there's a comment attached to
Highlighted
it.
in yellow.
So
Okay. Oh, I see. Got it.
that section we're going to be meeting
Okay,
as team
and
leads and
yeah, in
fleshing
here,
this
just make
out.
sure this.
So
Okay, yeah, and this is going to be the best place to just put in there that you're deciding to only do it using Google Docs and not put it into a Word document. Some of the other classes, they're being told they have to put it into a Word document. I don't care. Keep it in Google Docs is fine by me. And I actually had 2 contracts that have now been sent to me in Google Doc, which was kind of an interesting contract to get. They sent me the contract in Google Docs, and then I signed it using e-signature, and I never saw a paper copy at all. All right, so the rest of the way that you went through, you had the architectural design and the decomposition description. Who wrote up the decomposition description?
that would be me.
It was you. Okay. Can you walk me a little bit through kind of your motivation? I was just trying to look at how you broke it up, both the mobile, the client, and then you went into actual object language in there.
Uh-huh. The so we
Just,
rewrote
take me a little
we
bit through the flow
combined
on
quite
that.
a bit of it from what the original architecture team had already. So I added on to it. So the mobile had a system. It breaks down into that's your mobile device, and then it talks about the individual subsystems, client synchronization, application GUI, which the team calls it that. It's really the presentation layer. And then you've got, and that's on those side, and breaks down also into just the different subsystem components. So trying not to go through and redo all the diagrams that they had done, but that was kind of the philosophy. And then it goes into the web side, and breaks those down into the system decompositions. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure.
All right. Yeah, you did. I was just I was following through. I mean, you've got you have the mobile side, the client synchronization side, then the APU side, account management options. I mean, I was just curious kind of how you broke it down or why in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went into the data side. Who wrote the data piece? The data design and data description. Was that a separate team?
That was an assignment for a separate team. That was Andrew Gremlick's team. And I took a portion of what they had done and
Okay.
came up with some very rudimentary data description in section 1. So,
All right. Okay. And you said it was
yeah,
Andrew?
you want to speak on that?
What do you want me to
Go
talk
ahead.
about?
Well, I'm curious now. The only one thing I wanted to say, I didn't want you to spend too much time on the data design unless you've got a real strong data architect in the team and you can actually write and defend to it. So, and this looks like just a real broad skimming over the data design. So I was just curious, kind of what you hit, or were you going to add more to it? And if you don't have a guy who's deep in data design, I don't want you to waste the time on it.
When you say data design, do you mean like normalization forms and such with SQL databases?
Actually, what your data architecture is.
What the data architecture is? What do you mean by that?
I mean, that's. Well, as I was looking at this, I would expect inside a data design system to actually talk about what the data design is, what the linkages, what the dependencies are, what the interdependencies are, what the controls are and limitations are of that data. Actually talking about what the fields in the data schema would look like. So that's why I was curious about this. I mean, you said that it is a tabled rows in a rational database. So I didn't know, how deep you were going to get into this, other than what you had as the data directory, which was essentially 4 elements of data. So if these are the only 4 columns in your single table, that's just what I was curious of.
Oh, it's not. They're not going to be in a single table. They're going to be individual tables, each 4 of those.
Okay.
They did do an ERD in
Right. So each of these
diagram
are
21.
separate tables. You have 4 separate tables.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
Okay.
There's an ERD diagram that I have made with that, and I assume that the ERD diagram was relinked to the diagram section.
It's right there in just above
All
3.2 data dictionary. There's appendix 7.21 diagram 21. You can see that there's a simple ERD diagram there.
Okay. Let's see. Click this. See if it'll follow. All right, there. Oh, easy. Okay. Okay, and then see. Okay, so how do I go back in? Or is there a way to jump back in Google Docs?
I think you just do the back button. Just press the back button.
It's supposed to.
Nope.
That's not doing it.
I guess not. We use this method. Flying Dutchman method. Okay. All right, so if I want to go deeper into it, again, I'd see the relational diagram in diagram 21, component design, purpose, functions, subordinates, dependencies, interdependencies, data. Okay, so you wrote the item here. And this one question I had on this, and this kind of goes up to what I had talked about in the section here in 3. You wrote this here, description of internal data. So what does that mean? And you've actually got a link to it, so tell me this link's somewhere.
That's an artifact of the QA team. The QA
link
team
anywhere.
went and...
All right, so what do you mean by this? In 4.17, when you just had data and description of internal data?
So that's an artifact of the QA team. They had gone in and noticed that a lot of the section was missing was missing the format and the flow of our example, and they went and filled out the format in every component in section 4 and then put the text of what's supposed to go there. They did that oddly, instead of doing that as a comment or putting a TBD so that it was easy to recognize, they didn't insert that. So that was but they went through and filled out the format all through section 4 to make sure everything was consistent. So.
Got it. So that's why I see that in each section.
Yep. So the teams will be.
Right.
That's part
fine.
of their assignment is to fix that.
Which is a very good way to do it.
For this last go.
Okay. All right, and I see here your comments here about that things are not in the traceability matrix. So again, was the traceability matrix helpful or not as a QA tool?
I'll let the other teams speak on that. It looks like they're.
It was very helpful to the QA team from Brandon. Not really. Brandon, tell me why it was, and then Chuck, tell me why it wasn't.
Okay, there we go. When we were walking through it, we only had the big matrix for one section, but when we did the full sweep of section 4, I believe it was, is that right, Chuck? Whichever section it was really easy to go through and match the sections with what we were supposed to have in the matrix. So it made that process a lot quicker rather than jumping back to the SRS sheet and trying to compare from there.
All right.
Chuck, do you have a mic, or are you able to talk? I'm not hearing Chuck.
Chuck says yes.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you, Chuck. I know it was helpful for me initially, and then it became much less helpful. And the reason why it was helpful for me is that I could look through and see, oh, the teams didn't do this, they didn't meet this, and they didn't meet this, and I could assign out work based upon the traceability matrix. When it became less helpful is as things started moving around and people started flattening their structure and making things a little bit easier and legible in the SDD, they stopped updating the traceability matrix. And so that's actually a piece that we've got to go in and fix for this final version, but it became much less helpful that way. So Chuck is driving, so I'm not sure he'll be getting on a mic right now.
Chuck is driving. All right, Chuck, awesome on you. Do not get into an accident. Okay. So as you work your way through, are there any other additional objects you're putting in here, or now you're just cleaning up the objects?
Cleaning it up and putting what's remaining in the limitations.
Okay.
And you're talking about just section 4, because there was section 5 with the user interface design. Right.
Yep. Okay, Sarah made a comment here. This is ambiguous. Method of contact, etc. Yeah, it's a good point, Sarah. If you're on here, using the word etc. is it's kind of one of those lingering statements you don't really want to have. So end everything with a finite period statement. I didn't even catch that one until I now saw Sarah's highlight. As to the rest of the document here, I mean, it's a very It's a very well put together. I can see that, again, there's a lot of redundant stuff in here because you did just cut and paste or copy and paste of items to keep the formatting all the way through. Tennille's was not sure on this, what naming description somewhere else. Yeah, see, this is an old comment you had here from back in November. Are the comments helpful when you guys do QA on the document? Or is that how you're kind of cleaning up QA on the document, is using the comment statements? Sometimes. Okay. Is there are you running a QA book on this, or how are you doing QA on this, Matt?
I don't do the QA, but to my understanding of what your question was, are there suggestions helpful? And I said sometimes yes.
Okay. Chuck, comments were not as useful as suggestion mode in my driveway now. I mean, how are you actually doing the QA on this? I mean, how are you identifying, highlighting, or otherwise correcting errors in this on QA? Or are you just going top down and eyeballing it?
So, Brandon, do you want to speak on that? I know Sarah Bro is not here, and Chuck's typing as well. I know that you guys tried several different approaches. It looked like you changed a couple things during the process.
Yeah, so we started out by just going through and making sure the grammar and everything made sense, and that we weren't super deep, because in the SRS we got down to like 10 levels, I think, before we started to clean that up. We didn't want that to happen again, so we were focusing on that too, and that's where the traceability matrix came in handy, is where we could go down and simplify what each section was trying to say. And then, like Chuck and someone else up here said, after that, it didn't become super helpful. I guess I agree with him on that. And after that happened, we went through the matrix and got everything checked. We've just been going top down every week to make sure that things read well and we understand what the document's saying.
Got it. When I did my dissertation was just about 450 pages, but I had to essentially create a traceability or a QA book for all the changes and edits I was making to it, and that easily approached 1,000 pages, just because I had to keep tracking and who was making what edits, who made what changes, and who signed off each change. So sometimes the QA task can become more burdensome than the actual project.
So you had essentially a change log, right, of how the document was changed? That's what you're saying?
No, I will never do one of those again. Well, what happened was, when I had, as I wrote my dissertation, I had people who would say, I read paragraph 1.2.3, and I think it should say this, and then I would change it. And then they would come back and say, I read paragraph 1, 2, 3, and I think it should say this. And I started to get to a point where I realized people were conflicting with each other, and they would change paragraph 1, 2, 3, and then want it to change back. So I started to have to keep track of who was asking for what changes on any track process. And then as soon as they would want a change made to it again, I can come back and say, no, on this date you wanted this change, I made that change. Now you want me to change it to this, so you're rebutting your own change. And it stopped a lot of my dissertation review board from going back and continuing to want edits and changes. And essentially I said, okay, you've now made all these suggestions and I made all the changes, now you have to sign it. And they had not had someone do that in a long time, but it was helpful because now I had all of their confirmations for each edits, and they couldn't keep asking
Mhm.
for new edits. And here we go. Pretty Good Google Docs makes a log of suggestions and edits. Yes, they do. You just have to activate it. All right, so through the rest of 4, again, couple of formatting issues here. It's nice because, again, I keep reading the comments and I look for edits and closures on the comments. And here again, you've got a conflicting thing here in this section that's also in 44442. So it's those kind of things, kind of what I was using on my QA because I didn't have any other document to go off of. As you reach the end and you hit into, where are we, section 5. Blew right past it. All right, so I'm curious, why is user interface design its own section compared to what section 4 was? Why is this not just a part of section 4? And I should ask this question earlier.
That's following the template, the SDD template that we use. They broke them apart. We could have merged them. I mean, I've seen documents that break them apart and others that merge them together. We went with the template that the QA team had chosen. So.
All right. And you have that in section 1 or 2,
Yep.
where you actually have that as part of your references and limits. That's good. And then, so this goes through the rest. Traceability matrix, again, is referenced out. And then 7. Do you guys have any questions for me? I mean, I like the document. I especially like the fact you've left the comments in there, because I read the comments more than I'm reading the actual document. Because it kind of shows where your thought process is moving.
And
A+, Andrew. You know what? I don't know, is that a D right after that? Did you say A plus D? Again, I'm very happy with the document, and I like the collaboration that's going on. I like the fact everyone's been getting me all their grades for all the weeklies, so I can start doing those tabulations. Does anyone have any questions here before I close this up? Next to prioritize from Chuck. Chuck, I think at this point now, remove any of the things that are duplicative that you needed to do. The spot in there where you had the data needing to be filled. Again, remove that if there is no data applying. Remove any of the sections that were duplicative that aren't applicable. And just finish up the formatting. The one suggestion I have here in Appendix 7, in between the diagrams, add an additional return character or 2, so you're separating the diagrams, so I know that 7.2 applies to what's below, not to what's above. Because right now, it could be confusing as to does it apply to above or below. So just make sure that's cleaned up there on the refinement. Make sure you answer any of the comments that are in here, because again, I saw some of the comments that were not answered. I do look at the comments to make sure that they have been fulfilled, because again, that's kind of where I saw your communication and collaboration. No, I would not put a diagram onto a separate page for each. You can just have them rolling along as the way they are. Just make sure that the diagram heading is still attached to the diagram. It's not orphaned. If you do, make a page break. I didn't notice any spelling. Grammar errors are totally fine in a document like this as long as the point is made and it flows. And is there page numbering or header and footers that you put in with this, or did those get cut out in the way that Google Doc puts it together?
I believe they got cut off. We could try and add it, but I think it would create a bunch of problems in the formatting at this point. I mean, we could attempt it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Again, level of effort to level of reward. Keep that. Keep that in balance. But just it was one of those things I noticed there were no headers and footers on it. It's less applicable in a document where you have numbering for each paragraph, because people are going to refer to the paragraph, not the page number. But it was just a curiosity when I read it. Just be careful. I don't want you guys to completely destroy your document by attempting to put it in. Stephen, when do you think you'll have a document back to me to
Well,
to
we were
finish?
slated to, because there's a bunch of things needed in the traceability matrix and things. We were shooting for that 16th, just to give people flexibility around the final and everything. But if you need it earlier, we can work that out.
Okay. No, I think that's good. I'm going to. My only big thing I need is I need this document into me, but I also need everybody's weekly scores in before that because I have to do all the fun math before that. So I'm going to press
So maybe
everybody
the
to make sure
14th,
they get their weeklies in, and
the
any other
14th or
lingering
15th.
scores
So
for
the
people.
14th or 15th.
What's that?
The only time only because of, or do you
Um,
want it at the same time as the document?
yeah, I think
I'm thinking of Wednesday.
I would like to get the. Yeah, if I can get everybody's weekly scores by the 14th, that helps me to do all the math and download all of them because I have to download each one separately
Yeah.
and then
All
add it
that
into the
does is
matrix and then do all
the
the math.
QA team likes each other
So it,
pretty much.
I
So
think
all that
it's
does is cut. The QA team has the document at that point from the 14th through the 16th. So they'll just have to estimate their ratings for that final stretch.
all right.
So
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I spend more time downloading and tabulating weekly scores than I do actually reading the SRS, because that's just a pain in the rear. But it's part of the fun. Next, not yeah, it's next semester they're going to have it as a graded item that you can actually submit as one of the point items, and hopefully the year or the semester after that they'll have it automated where you can put it into a matrix. So that's
yep.
one of the big things we've been working on. If there's no other questions, again, great document, great submission, great collaboration.
Okay. Thank you.
And Sarah, yes, I hope your score is better, but I think your husband's the one who keeps grading you down, so you got to talk to him about that.
Cheers.
All right, you guys have a good night again. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you
You too.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Sure, I can.
We'll just